What does it mean to be 1% better? I'm your co-host Kim Lloyd, and together with Doug Sperling, we explore personal development topics and strategies you can use to make small daily improvements in your life and in your business.
Hey everyone, welcome to the 1% Better Show. This is episode 53. And for full disclosure, maybe you're watching this when all this is past, but we are recording this hopefully in the peak, but if not in the thick of it with everything with COVID-19 coronavirus going on. And so we, for today's topic, are going to talk about healthy coping strategies. And so depending upon when you're listening to this episode, if you're listening to it the week or two after we're recording, then it's going to be very relevant. And I would say, outside of, hopefully these events pass soon, for context, we're recording it on March 18th of 2020. If you are listening to it after, anytime you're dealing with some type of challenge or a very high anxiety moment in life, these strategies are going to be very helpful. So, Kim, check in with me. You still got a pulse?
Oh yeah, man. It's been a week, and of course, it's been a week for everybody. And so obviously, Doug and I coming together here I said, what a way to start our second year. This is technically starting our second year of podcasting, and it's been certainly an interesting time. One of the reminders that I read, an email that I subscribed to, there was, of course, tips for managing stress. And one of them is to remember that we have survived crises before. And so this one is unique to many people that we're talking to right now. It's like nothing we've really ever seen, but that, we have survived these as humans before, and we will survive them now. And for our purposes here, we are just trying to do everything we can to be supportive to our clients, to everybody out there, to the community, and say, okay, what do you need? And, how can we help? And I feel particularly fortunate that we're in a position right now where I'm working. Of course, Sheila works for the Maine CDC. And so she's obviously working. And, we don't have kids at home right now. We're both able to work. And so we both really are grateful that we're in a position to really lean on each other and provide some support as much as we can. So with everything going on, I think we both still have a certain amount of peace, at least for right now, about what we're able to do. And that's kind of without, obviously, we need to acknowledge the reality of what's going on, and we can talk a little bit about how that's affecting the day-to-day life, but also at the same time trying to see where we can train ourselves to look at the positives and how we can try to help people negotiate their day-to-day. So, so Doug, tell me, give us a little bit of an update for people who don't know, what's day-to-day like right now?
Day-to-day for me is, as a parent, I will be very honest with you. Megan is doing an incredible job right now, and I'm going to give 110% credit to her. I am navigating our business every hour of every day right now, and I would say navigating our community, not just the business, but the community at large. And so Megan has, I see the kids for like 20 minutes a day right now, and it's usually very largely distracted. And so Megan has stepped up big time, and she is she's a PA for the urgent care, so she's obviously very secure in her job as well. So we're pretty fortunate here that we have a great community that's supporting us through this, and we've made some pretty rapid and implemented and led. And I think that's what, I know Kim loves him. There's a Mr. Rogers quote out there that says, I'm paraphrasing here, but it's basically like in the chaos, in the crisis, look for the helpers. And that's really what we are trying to do, and I am trying to do, is to help our team, to help our community, to help our clients. What that looks like logistically is that from 5 a.m. till about 11 p.m., it's just nonstop. But that's, we'll get past this, and I confidently feel the ones that lead, the ones that help, the ones that take charge will come stronger out of this, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not a big fan of the victim mindset, and kind of the same thing with the abundance mindset, like we talked about in previous episodes. So I think, kind of taking that, whether you're looking at it from a parent or whether you're looking at that as a team member or anything like that, trying to take lead and take charge. And of course, have safe practices, but be the leader, be the helper. That's kind of the mindset that I'm trying to I am having right now.
Yeah, and so to paint a picture, when we listen back to this episode, the state of Maine right now, literally the state of Maine, but also like where we are, where we're at right now is most people are not in school right now, so most schools are closed. A number of work, if they can work from home, they are working from home. Most gyms and establishments at this point are closed because, there's a recommendation to have gatherings no more than 50 people, but then also some recommendations to try to keep it to 10. And we are fortunate that we're in a place here where we have 6,000 square feet, and because people sign up for sessions, we can control the number of people that walk through their doors. So we are still offering sessions, albeit in a different capacity than what we've been doing. And so, but we do have people who, for a variety of reasons, are opting not to come in, whether they are in a high-risk category, or in some cases we have clients who are primary caregivers or they live with someone who is older, and so right now they are choosing to stay at home for themselves. And so these are the folks that we're also trying to support in this process. And so with that in mind, we've been trying to offer some we've referred to strategy sessions here on the podcast before, which is something that we offer to all of our clients, where they can sit down with a coach and talk about any concerns that they have going on. And so with everything going on right now, I did a group one this morning where we all got on a Zoom call. Zoom, if you're not familiar, you will be, because that is a primary way for not just communicating and professionally, but for socializing, as I heard this morning. But we this morning talked about different kinds of coping strategies, and so what we thought might be most helpful today is to actually spell some of those out. And so I'm going to start here with, there's a couple different categories, but the first category here is self-soothing. And the number one thing here is think about your five senses. And so there's different ways to soothe yourself through all of the five senses. And so the first one, if you think about something to touch, easy for me, I have a dog. I have a really chill dog. If you're in our Facebook group, you saw him fall asleep in the course of my talking for 5 minutes yesterday on Facebook Live. But I've said before that he's kind of my weighted blanket. But we know, there's research out there that for most people, if you have an animal or hopefully an animal to pet, gosh, but hopefully if you have an animal or something like that, that's going to be helpful for you. And also, this is where the sense of touch as well, stress balls and things like that. That's one of the reasons that those exist. And so thinking about some self-soothing opportunities that you might have through a sense of touch. And Doug, I don't know if you have anything to add there.
No, I'm touching my keyboard quite a bit right now as far as emails and memos and all that stuff. But I do agree. I think when I spoke about my schedule right now, this whole social distancing, which I strongly don't like that word. I like the word physical distance or geographic distance, because I think we can still socially stay connected, as Kim alluded to, with platforms like Zoom. But last night I crawled into bed with my son and read him a book and snuggled with him for about 10 minutes. So I would even think things like that, and my dog, I don't even know who he is anymore. He lives up in our in-law apartment. He comes down to go pee. He hates us now that we have kids. He gets treated like king. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to portray any negative, but he's not a Rooney that just likes to snuggle. He's like, I'm up here in my in-law apartment, and when I need to go pee, I'll come down.
Yeah, right. I love it. I was thinking about that actually, kid snuggles, because, baby snuggles are, I don't have kids, but I do enjoy my opportunity for baby snuggles. So I think that makes sense. If we go to, the hearing, so the sense of hearing, this is where I would say guided meditation. So we could take meditations to, there's a lot to be said about that, but in terms of the level of anxiety that people are really dealing with, I think there's two things there. One is that if you can listen to a guided meditation, in terms of resources, you've got Headspace that gives you a free, there's a lot you can do with the free part of it. There is the 10% Happier app that also offers some free meditations with that. And then there's a woman whose name is Tara Brach, and I'm going to try to remember everything we reference here to go in and update the notes. But Tara Brach, B-R-A-C-H, she is a Buddhist teacher who has a podcast, and she was a psychologist before she retired, but she has a number of, first of all, talks, and I imagine she publishes, I think, every Wednesday or speaks every Wednesday night, so I imagine she'll have some talks out specific to what's going on right now, but she also has a number of guided meditations that you can access for free, and that would be through using the podcast app as well. So you have that. Go ahead, Doug, if you want to.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I mean, I've used the Headspace app in the past, and I think it's probably one of the better guided meditation apps. And I would give a selfish plug for podcasts right now. I think we're excited. We have, this is number 53. We have 53 hours basically of content that you can listen to when we talk about the hearing sense. And it's for us, it's a lot of personal development. So trying to have that positive mindset, trying to have, look at all the negative self-talk, the fears, overcoming challenges. I mean, all of that is super relevant right now. So of course the meditation, very important, but I would also lump any of your podcasts and that auditory consumption right now is going to be key.
Yeah, and this was unique, something that I learned from Melissa Boyd, and who is a local medium in the community, but she introduced me to the idea of frequencies, and so you can actually search. So if you search like stress relieving frequencies, it's different. You have to kind of get used to it, but you can find 3 and 4 hour YouTube videos. And then the other thing that's out there is, in terms of audio, is Gregorian chants. And those actually work really well for me. So if you're looking for particular things to soothe you outside of maybe James Taylor and other easy listening, you can look up the frequencies or guided meditations. Keeping with the senses, something to see, which this isn't something I really thought about, but those of you out there who have aquariums and fish tanks and things like that, that's the idea there. Even being able to look out your window, I know for me, I get 2 at the same time. I get to hold Rooney, and I get to look out my back window, which is a very peaceful setting for me. And so I know, Doug, you get to look out and see wildlife. Mm-hmm. Well, not wildlife, cows. You get to see cows.
Yeah, not dairy cows. They are eventually grown for beef, but no, they are very cool. We are very fortunate that we are backed up to a very large farm that is not ours and is very clean and does not smell and is very peaceful. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think today we're filming and it's a very sunny day. Vitamin D and that is obviously, there's a lot of science behind that exposure. But even if you're not outside, just being able to see outside. And I remember I had saltwater fish tanks growing up the time. Yeah, that was, I wouldn't call it a hobby, but I went through a like all kids do. I think you ask your parents for pets and different hamsters and reptiles and things like that.
No, never reptiles.
Oh yeah, I remember one day I was cleaning my room and I found a dead gecko underneath my bed. Oh. And I used to.
Boys are so different.
Oh yeah. Oh. Yeah, my brother and I had the whole lizard tanks and turtle tanks and all that stuff. But I had a little bit of a run with saltwater fish tanks. Kim still hung up on the dead gecko.
Yeah, I really hung up on the dead gecko.
But the fish tank, it was fish tanks. It was very, very peaceful to watch. I had those. I call them Nemo fish. I think they're called clownfish, but everybody calls them the Nemo fish. Oh yeah. The orange and white clownfish, and watching those guys and gals swim around is certainly peaceful.
Well, I went through a phase. I sure as hell didn't go through a reptile phase, for crying out loud, but I did go through a fish phase. It wasn't. It was more goldfish. It wasn't saltwater. But I went through a phase where we had a 10-gallon tank, and all of the fish, not shockingly, were named after Steelers players. And I remember the one day that I went into my mom and I told her that Chuck Noll had died. And at the time, he was the coach for the Steelers. And she was like, "Oh, my goodness." And I was like, "No, the fish. Chuck Noll, our fish died." But yeah, so there you go. Remember that you can access some visual things there. The last 2 here, something to taste. This is where green tea, that's a good example there. Green tea, peppermint tea, your herbal teas. Mint sometimes can actually be very soothing, which we keep mints here at the gym, and I know the coaches end up eating a lot of them, I think, for that reason. And then also here, something to smell. And that's where the eucalyptus is one that I really like. But at this point, there are some stress relieving candles and things out there. But I would also offer anything that maybe brings you some comfort. And that might be, baking something. Of course, we know that people are trying to stay conscious about their health and nutrition choices. But just being mindful that you can tap into your 5 senses as a way to start for sort of your self-soothing.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm very much looking forward to your insight here on distraction.
Oh my gosh.
Because that's what I feel like everybody is, I don't know if that's, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on, as you kind of map this out, and maybe you talked about it this morning in your strategy session with distraction coping. Oftentimes that's considered not good coping. So how in your eyes, how is distracting a coping skill, and how can you make that a positive and not just a negative?
Well, I think that's a good question, because at what point do you kind of lose yourself to something, right? Like, because there's that, we know that there's, it's great to like do puzzles or word games and things like that. And in some cases, that's super helpful for people who maybe tend to snack at night. You're like, okay, what can you do with your hands? Because a lot of times people are like, I'm reading and then I snack. And you're like, okay, what can you do with your hands? And I think it's a fine line. And I think we're going to get to the emotional awareness here. And I think that I'm going to step over to emotional awareness and say that is probably how you will best be able to tell at what point your distraction becomes just avoiding life or avoiding confronting things that you maybe have to do. Like, we know at this point sometimes people can use distraction to put off exercise or to, I don't even know what else you might put off. I mean, work, sure, anything like that. Yeah, cleaning the house. And so I think it's a fine line. And so you have to be, in terms of emotional awareness, we'll jump over there and say, we have talked here before about self-reflection and about journaling, or you could, even drawing. But what you really need to be able to do in a time like this is tap into your own emotions and try to develop some awareness of how you're feeling. And I had this conversation with a client the other day who was feeling incredibly anxious. And she, we talked about different strategies, and she identified word games on her iPad as something that she finds helpful, but she also sets a limit to that because she tends to look at the screen all day. She's a teacher, and so she's looking at screens all day long right now. So she's setting a limit on that. But I would also say the other distractions, so I think the easier ones are like our iPads, our devices, YouTube, Netflix, all of those kind of streaming services. I think those are the ones that are a little more convenient, but also distractions here might be learning new things. And that's where this morning we talked about the website Skillshare, and I'll try to remember to share that as well. We have a client here who actually builds classes for Skillshare, but this morning on the call we jumped in and we realized that you can have, I think it's 2 months. For right now, you can sign up and you'll get a free 2 months out of that. And there are classes for just about everything with that.
Yeah, I think learning a new, a lot of people are going to be asking how to stay busy and everything like that. And during times like this, again, for context, a lot of people are not locked up, but mentally and sometimes asked to not leave their house for 14 days right now, 15 days. And so, here's something I was reading on when I was trying to fall asleep last night. Most of the world prior to this current event has complained about the amount of time they have and how busy they are. And now most people are complaining about how bored they are. So a lot of this can be making sure that you, in times like this, and I know this is very specific to current events, but making sure that you take advantage of, we saw a client yesterday who finally, they were wanting to paint their living room. So they moved the furniture to the middle of the room and painted their living room. Learning a new skill, taking online classes, challenging yourself in ways, silly things like, you've wanted to clean out your basement. Okay, now's a perfect time. So I think it's very interesting for me being a bit of a productivity nerd where right now the culture is, I'm bored, I'm stuck at home, what do I do? Yet 2 weeks ago, it was, I'm so busy, I don't have enough time. And so, with some of these distraction things, and when I say productivity, I love, I just heard this, I believe, I'm trying to remember who I originally heard it from, but, and I know this is not about productivity, but it's when I reference productivity, I want to make sure we're talking about, it's not doing more. It's not doing more. It's doing the right things, right? And so the right things might be just chilling and watching Netflix. Like, I could probably benefit from just chilling and watching Netflix right now. And Kim's over there agreeing. But for a lot of us, it's not to say like the objective is to make things productive, but when we look at distraction, healthy distraction, and healthy distraction meaning maybe you do learn a new skill, maybe you do some spring cleanup, maybe you do organize your closet, things like that.
Yeah, well, because ultimately what we are hearing from clients and what we know many people are trying to negotiate is you're trying to avoid too much of the not healthy coping skills that we know, that we already know we can be prone to, and so we're trying to be proactive. And so I think, healthy is incredibly a very important thing to add there. Did you have something you wanted to know? So along with distraction, I guess I also wanted to mention, take a look at that long list that you have, right? So even if it's not written down, take a minute right now and think about that list of all the things you want to do. And I realize some of that is probably travel, et cetera, et cetera. But you know what I did on Sunday when all of this started to get, it wasn't even that, well, anyway. On Sunday, I sat down and I started drafting the pilot episode of what do you call it, like a TV show, but like a sitcom. And it's called The Gym. And it is not hard here, after having worked here for 4 years, to map that out. And I have been wanting to do that for a long time, but it's not a high priority, right? It's just something that I was interested in. And so I sat down and sketched it out, and Doug's character is named Larry. So there you go.
Larry.
Larry, there you go. So it's evolving, but this is the time to take out any of those things that you've been meaning to get to, or those skills that you've been meaning to learn. Hopefully you have access. That's the thing, too, is that right now there are a ton of limitations, but so long as the Postal Service is still delivering, and I just heard, I think Amazon was hiring like 10,000 more employees, you should hopefully have access to some of the things, tools to launch into those hobbies.
Yeah, and even things like Kim had mentioned, Skillshare, and a lot of those platforms, a lot of the education and consumption platforms as a way to give back right now. And again, I know a lot of this, we're speaking to current events, but a lot of those platforms are giving away their service at either free or low cost. Even specific to our industry, a lot of the fitness industry, things like coaching, not so much coaching in the sense of with a coach, but products where you have done for you workouts and things like that. A lot of those are being gifted to the industry because we know people need to be working at home, and we've been doing a lot of pre-filmed workouts. There's certainly a benefit of getting coaching with our product, but a lot of the pre-filmed workouts as a way to give back, we've just been giving away to the community. So I think there's a lot of that when we reference like things like Skillshare. I know Zoom right now is doing a free trial if you don't, or I believe a very low price trial.
Oh, nice.
If you don't have a Zoom account and things like that.
Yeah, Masterclass is another one that's one that has piqued my interest that I've never done. So anyway, so those are out there for the distractions. So this next type of coping skill is actually doing the opposite of what you feel. And this was some of the best advice I ever got in terms of managing my depression, which was you feel like shutting yourself off, and so go hang out with a friend. And I remember very clearly, calling a friend up and being like, my therapist says I should hang out with people. I don't want to hang out with you, but will you hang out with me? It was horrible. But she did it. And it was hard. It was hard. But what you're trying to do is be consciously aware of what it is that you're being pulled towards. So if you're being pulled towards the sort of the depression that could come with the situational depression that could come with a circumstance like this, then it is trying to actively fight against that and to make decisions the complete opposite of what you're thinking and feeling. And along those lines, I know misery loves company. And so it can be easy to look for things that reinforce the way you're feeling. And on the one hand, that can be very validating. On the other hand, that's just feeding the beast. And so it's trying to manage at what point do you need to step away from that kind of content and look for some affirmations, look for some inspiration. And then, of course, one of my absolute favorite ways to try to negotiate anything that comes up is humor. Humor is, it's not making light of the situation that you're in, but, can you find can you find some moments throughout the day where you can laugh at yourself, or just laugh to kind of even burn off some energy? Actually, we've seen it here. People burn calories by laughing.
You do.
Yeah.
It's today in the live virtual workout with our clients, we had a little dance party going on, and in between the rest periods, just to get people to get. I was not dancing, but I was watching a little bit, just to get people to laugh. I even think last night, Megan has a bunch of recorded, what do they call it, DVR shows that she watches, and one of them is Ellen's game show. Ellen DeGeneres, she has that game show. It's just like super goofy and funny, typical Ellen kind of stuff, and I don't normally watch it, but last night it was on, so I shut my laptop and just for about 20 minutes watched a bunch of people getting dunked in slime or something like that. But either way, you get a couple giggles and you feel a little better.
Yeah.
And talk about that, opposite, and you're feeling like still working, you're feeling like still reaching out to clients, etc. But just trying to put that aside, and that's where your brain's telling you to go, but to this point, kind of trying to take that opposite action.
Yeah, absolutely. So to this point, just to recap a little, we've talked about types of coping skills as self-soothing, using the senses, distraction, really any way you can think to do that with both hobbies and games, taking opposite action. We touched on this. I just want to reiterate the emotional awareness. And again, that is some self-reflection, or hopefully, again, having access to. I'm a fan of face-to-face right now. I know that we can call people on the phone or email, but right now I want to see people's faces, and I want them to see mine, at least right now, based on a lot of the isolation. Like, I think there's something to be said about being able to see somebody's face react to you, and somebody for you to react to somebody and for them to react back to you, I think is really important right now. So
yeah, social connection, right? And fortunately, Kim did the 3-to-1, 3 positives and for every 1 negative kind of talk with our clients the other day. And I think the more you can do that, and one of them, I believe at one point when she was talking about it, was technology.
Yeah.
And just super grateful for technology. So right now, for example, the last couple of days we've been doing virtual workouts with our clients. We've had 30 to 40 people on these workouts that we can see, they can connect, they can see us laugh, we can see them laugh. That is so valuable compared to just saying, hey, here's a workout you can do on your own. There's not going to be accountability, there's not going to be connection. FaceTime, Zoom, and Skype, any of those platforms right now are awesome to connect. The other thing that probably falls into this emotional awareness category that I thought of is I received the recommendation that I plan on starting today, just this morning, for this is very relevant to current events, is to, if you have it, one of those $10 staple notebooks, just a small journal, but separate, any type of notebook, but separate. Have it not be like an existing notebook that you already use, but a new notebook. And on the cover of it, write, the date and COVID-19. And journal everything you've learned while this is going on. Because for a lot of us, this is just new chartered territory. As a business, there's a lot I've learned about how we're structured and plans, and just being, in my lifetime, this might happen again. And so being planned for it, whether we're looking at it from decisions that we've made that we might make differently, or plans that we learned during this time, or ideas that you have to do. Like I've just been, Kim probably thinks I'm distracted, but as she's speaking here, I've emailed myself a couple ideas that have come up to keep clients engaged. And so things like that go into that notebook, and then, maybe not in the midst of everything you review it, but after the fact, you have the opportunity to review it, because when you have moments like this where you are coping, there's a lot that you can learn if you have the emotional awareness to reflect. And of course, that can be hard to remember if you don't journal about it.
Yeah, no, I think that we are, this is a challenge obviously for all of us in different ways. And we are being challenged to figure out exactly what coaching looks like when it can't look like in-person fitness coaching. So last two we're going to touch on here is mindfulness, and I'm going to put this exercise out there for those of you who are trying to manage your anxiety. And I know there's a lot of you, some of you that are working in the healthcare field, and you have no choice but to go to work. You don't know what you're exposed to. I know there's some people out there that are self-quarantining from their family while they're doing this kind of work. So I know there's a ton of anxiety out there, but one of the techniques that you can use is to name 5 things in your environment. So that's where you look around, and I might name #goals. That's actually like we have a little little, not even a sign, it's like a cutout with that, plant, whatever. But then to get more specific, you might also say, okay, identify 5 red objects in the room. And there are different techniques like that that can help get you out of your mind and kind of back into your body to help you really manage that. So obviously there's also yoga. And also this is a place where you can, some people will use a rock or something like that to ground themselves, but this goes back to a sense of touch, anything that you can do to try to ground you and put you back into the present moment.
Yeah.
And so the last one here that we're going to put in, and this is a really crucial one at this point of time, which is in terms of a coping skill, don't forget crisis management is out there. And so there are resources all over the place, because we all need to acknowledge that at some point the coping skills that you have and that you're trying to implement just might not be enough. You might need additional support. And there are, I know at least at this point, there are apps, I believe, that you can use. You can access therapy pretty, they've kind of reduced the friction, I guess we'll say, because I know therapists right now, my therapist is not meeting in person. That's just something that they're not doing. So they're also doing it virtually, but you can access that. And of course, the crisis hotline, 911, by all means, make use of that. But please don't forget that, if these coping skills aren't working for you, that's okay. That could happen, and there's help out there for you, and please don't be shy about reaching out for it. But these at least are sort of 5. I think we'll have plenty more to say about these as the weeks go on, because there's value in each and every one of them and diving into them a little bit more. But at least for now, hopefully we've given you some information that maybe you can tap into for the coming week.
No, and I think this is good, and honestly, I'm actually very excited that I think this episode will be highly consumed by people. Mm-hmm. We're recording on a Wednesday. We'll get this out here tomorrow on Thursday's email and social media, and hopefully people can listen to this, take action. There's a lot of bandwidth to be listening to podcasts right now, so whether it's this one and or other ones that help you right now, kind of going back to the the self-soothing and the hearing and the auditory and healthy consumption. So hopefully this was helpful.
Yeah, and if you're out there listening to this and you're not a member of our gym and you're looking for resources, please know that we are making those available, as many as we can, to the public. And you can do that by visiting our Facebook page, which is Sperling Fitness. You'll get, if you're not signed up for emails, you can do that if you visit our website, which is sperlingfitness.com. And then we are also on Instagram. So we're out there trying to provide useful information for you and also a little bit of inspiration there as well.
Awesome. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks.